And I think the biggest news we need to talk about is the heist of the century, the trade. Uh, there was a trade for Bryce Huff to the 49ers. Kind of makes a lot of sense that he went to the Niners too. Um, they need somebody opposite Bosa. They've been searching that for a while. I think he's a good fit. Gets back with Robert Saleh over there as well, who kind of knows him well. Really interesting though that a lot of some of the behind the scenes things that are coming about of Bryce, right? Wasn't at OTAs. He also was not. I don't. I'm hearing that he wasn't even at the Super Bowl parade. Like he didn't join them for the parade. Is a rumor I'm also hearing too. Like he wasn't out there, which is really surprising. It's a rumor. I don't know how true it is, but I'm thinking about of all the stuff you saw from that parade, you really didn't see anything from you didn't see anything Bryce Huff like anywhere when you think
Yeah.
about it. So, and then this video is also surfing around what some of the the influencers out there of him talking about getting the bag, right? When he was looking for his new deal, about him giving the bag. Is he team first, team not, or is he for himself first? Kind of putting him in the Hassan Reddick kind of area a little bit, for him. I just think it just didn't work out, right? It just didn't. He didn't catch on for whatever reason. They tried to use him too much, not too less. I don't know, but when you get, you didn't even play in the Super Bowl. You weren't even dressed. It's pretty telling what's going on. I mean, what do you think about this trade? Tell us from your thoughts from his, I guess, from the GM side, and talk some salary crap, man. There's a lot that goes on with the trade, not just the fact that they got traded, but there's a lot of trickle effect, little kind of trickle effect, daisy chain things about trading Bryce Huff.
So, yeah, man. First of all, been too long since we've been here.
Sure,
We've had
big
some
facts.
holidays, not enough things, some personal things going on, whatever. Glad to be back and talk birds. Let's start off by addressing some of the things here. As far as the parade goes, I don't know anything about that. I can't give you any substance to that. Rumors of whether he was there or not there. If he wasn't there, I would assume that the team would tell you that he had a formal excuse not to be there, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
I cannot tell you that the Philadelphia Eagles told Bryce Huff not to show up for offseason activities. I cannot tell you that they told him to show up for offseason activities. He was not present for anything.
Nope.
That is previous OTAs. That is all the voluntary workouts. And basically, any sort of sights of this dude in the facility. Nate can probably touch on this a little bit. There's going to be a thing with the veterans who a lot of people say they just kind of live in the facility because their lives have gotten to the point where they're not really worried about the after parties or whatever it may be. They're kind of they have families and their work is literally going to the facility, putting in the work and going on, whatever.
Yep.
Huff Huff is interesting. Let's drop one fun fact here. The Eagles paid $26 million for 12 games and 12 postseason snaps of Bryce Huff. They're only going to save $2.4 million in 2025 cap space as they work to finalize a deal with the 49ers. That's per Jeff Kerr of CBS. Great job covering the Eagles. He has a lot of good little statistic tidbits, and contracts and stuff like that. Now, where this gets interesting is obviously the Eagles were looking to move off the player. In 2024, we talk about Saquon Barkley. We talk about Zach Bond. I mean, we talk about all the good things that happened. This is the one blemish that is glaring. And most teams would be forced to put a player on the field when they're paying him $17 million a year. And because the Eagles and Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and the coaching staff have a unusual respect for each other, we didn't see this. We saw after the player was hurt, after the bye week when the whole team turned around, Bryce Huff was non-existent. I mean, Vic Fangio told you, I don't want this guy on the field. And a lot of that was due to scheme. It was due to the fact it was a reluctancy to stop the run or to show aggressiveness in the run, and it was lack of ability to drop into coverage. So All those sim pressures are useless with a guy like Bryce Huff. This dude is built for a 4-3 defensive end job. There's only so many teams that run that. He finds home back with Robert Saleh, who is some could say is the reason he got paid, because as a designated pass rusher in 2023, he was able to accrue 10 sacks.
Yeah, he got money.
And that was out of hand in the dirt. And for those that don't understand what we're talking about here, you have a hand in the dirt 4-3 pass rusher that was forced into a 3-4. That's like putting a square into a circle hole. It just doesn't work.
And he had the numbers to match it too. Not to cut you off there, he led the league in successful pressures, if I'm not mistaken.
As a designated pass rusher, he did.
Yep.
The NFL refers to it as DPR, and that's a rotational pass rusher in whatever scheme. This is not just relevant to a 4-3. This is throughout the league. A DPR is someone who their job is they're like a closing pitcher. Their whole job is to come in on a late passing down and get a sack or put pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think if last year doesn't go as well as it did, winning the Super Bowl, I think there's a lot more conversation about this Bryce Huff contract. I think with them willing to move on, which as far as I understand is a 2026 fifth-round pick that can become a fourth based on performance incentives. So essentially,
that's from the GM right there. Right? That's not from Shefty. That's not from anybody inside. That's before they even get it. That's from the GM right there. That's from that guy. That guy
so
put that out there.
What's interesting is neither team released this. Like they were playing like standoff, like who's gonna say who paid for what. It was very weird. I'm just gonna go ahead and put this out there. It was very weird the way both teams announced the compensation. The Eagles actually announced this compensation as a 2026 mid-round pick. It was only 30 minutes before the show started that this information dropped. I mean, it's become public that it's a fifth that can become a 4. But it was dressed up as a mid-round pick the entire time. I think this just talks more into how good the Eagles are in their front office and how tight they keep things. And I think there's a way they wanted this dressed up, and I think that it was dressed up the way that they wanted to. Ultimately, I can't believe that someone actually paid a fifth-round pick that can become a fourth-round pick for a player that had no shot on being on the Eagles roster. What this tells me is that multiple teams were in on the deal. I could not tell you who those teams are.
That makes sense.
It just would make sense that that's what rushed the deal to get done this early in the offseason.
Yeah.
The Eagles attempted to do this with James Bradbury last year. My loss of $50 and a phantom injury kept him as a basically pseudo assistant coach for the season. But yeah, this is it's a weird deal. I'm very curious about the way that they handled it. I think that the Eagles expressed next level front office ship, you could call it. They handled business at another level with this. They won a Super Bowl and then were able to take the one piece of the test that they screwed up, bundle it up and throw it away and move on. I mean, and then find somebody that's willing to bite your mess up. It's huge.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy that they were able to get the compensation that they did. I mean, Howie, kind of doing it again. And like you said, I think that makes a lot of sense with the compensation there, that there was other teams involved, that it would be that for somebody.
There's no way the Niners give up what they give up without another team, at least one team being involved in a discussion for Bryce Huff. There's no way. I don't know who that team. It'll probably become public sooner rather than later. It may never become public. But the Niners aren't giving that for nothing, like just because they like the player and, Robert Saleh happened to coach him. That doesn't align. The guy that drafted the player or actually signed him as an undrafted free agent is currently working for the Eagles. So,
yeah. And then the Eagles get another pick, right? They get another pick.
Yeah, I mean, they're up to, I think it's 13 picks in the 2026 draft. That's telling.
Yeah. Yeah, that is telling. Now I know from this trade that happened is that there's a lot of back end numbers where the Eagles and the rumors are running rampant about how they have all this cap space. So they did get the Niners. Was it 7 million? Is the Niners on the hook for somewhere
Something
around there?
like that. We won't know any of that because the trade was just finalized today, and it was finalized at 4 p.m. today. We won't know the exact details per the league until tomorrow at 4, which would be their transaction time.
Yeah.
As far as the finances go, supposedly the Eagles worked out some sort of thing where they're eating some money and they renegotiated the contract right before the deal in order to make it
Make it work.
easier for the Niners. Those details are not public yet. I
Yeah.
don't have them in private. There is no getting that information yet. The fact that it took this long just to figure out what the compensation was should tell you that those numbers are going to be pretty hard to dig up.